Alright guys, this is Rodeska and I'm coming to you with a video today for making stylized hair inside of Zbrush for your characters. So essentially what I'm doing here is I'm making a cylinder and we are removing the end caps of the cylinder. This is important for having a better UV for your stylized hair. You could do this in Zbrush and get a default UV on it, but this just helps with having no seams in your textures or reducing the seams, and it just helps. See right here, I am actually attracting a seam and then unwrapping it, and as you can see, even though we can use this, it's still going to have some issues with the seams in the textures. So I bring it into a modeling app. This one is Houdini, and I am using Houdini to unwrap this. The reason why I'm using Houdini is I just like its unwrapping algorithm. I don't necessarily have to make something rectangular. If it already has like straight edges, it'll just do it automatically. And right here I am filling up the UV space with the entire cylinder. I'm trying to get it as close to the borders as I can. Now again, you can use this, you can do this in any software. You can do it in Blender or whatever, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it in Houdini, and we're going to go Z that back in. So right here I'm using a noise, I think that's erosion, or yeah. And what we're doing is we're just basically creating a noise, and if you turn on the color to your noise, you'll be able to see exactly what you're doing in the edit, so you can then make your hair. And I'm just rotating it and scaling it along the up axis so that it's actually looking more like hair in the noise, or like fur, and then just kind of increasing the length of that along the cylinder in the surface noise. And we're sitting here, we're just playing around with it to get it to be a little better, and then we increase the strength of the surface noise to allow us to get better offset. And right now it kind of looks like tree bark, but if you actually lengthen this tube up, you will actually get a more of a elongated hair kind of look. So I also saved off that surface noise so that I can do other things with it a little bit later on. And again, now, and just like in our last tutorial, we're placing the hair and we are flattening it down to make a kind of flat tube of hair, and then we taper the edges as close as we can so that it actually makes it look like stylized hair. And then the rest of this is just literally just placing the hair now. You already have it unwrapped, and now you're just placing it and you're just editing it. Also, I like to have a an order of operations. So usually the middle one would go on top of the side ones because it's going to be the most visible. You don't necessarily have to do this, but it just, for big fat pieces like this, I mean, you can make them even smaller, but big fat pieces like this, I like to do an order of operations because it just makes the hair look a little bit better, and then there's less overlap of the hair and the textures. So you want to avoid that as well. See, as you can see, I'm pulling out that middle one and pushing down the sides just to make it look a little bit better. That's something that you're going to want to do. You're going to want to spend a lot of time just kind of going in and editing it and making sure that you don't have, or making sure you reduce the overlaps in the textures. I also crease by polygroups, the tubes by polygroups, because if you use dynamic subdivisions, then the edges at the ends of the tube will actually shrink up and it will look really weird. But if you use creases by polygroups, it will crease the ends, the borders of those, and it'll keep that sharp look that you want. So you want to make sure that you do that as well, so that way you just get a better look. Again, we are kind of making sure that the order of operations is just a little bit better, making sure that we don't get any overlaps in the textures. One thing I did notice about my ZBrush is that now every single project that I do inside of ZBrush, for some reason, the world axis will shift to the right and then up, or excuse me, to the left and up, or left and forward. So now every time I bring it into a program, now all of my models are shifted, and I do not know why. Even if I start a new project, for some reason it will all be shifted. I have no idea why that happens. I'm going to have to figure out why that is doing that, because it's really screwing up with a lot of the other programs. And here we are again. I just made a brush with this tube, and now we're just using that brush to kind of drag out these the tubes that we created. Now you can also just by default just flatten these out and then make a brush out of that, so that you don't have to do as much work. I actually ended up doing that because I'm an idiot, and I didn't think about that until afterwards. But yeah, make sure that you can save off the default tube, and then make sure you save off all the other ones, like the flat ones that you make, as a brush, so that way you don't have to do as much of this tweaking. And yeah, we're just trying to use that base hair as an example of where we're going with the hair. I did mirror it. I didn't do a mirror and weld. I did mirror, because you don't want to mirror the hair together. You want to make sure it's all separate, so that way when you're editing the roots of the hair, that you can edit a little bit better and it's going to look more natural. And we'll be getting into that in just a second. But yeah, I'm just sitting here. Yeah, this is where, for some reason, my modifier got jacked up, and I don't know why that happened. So now I'm just kind of going in and just placing one manually. And I do this, but then I end up just scrapping these two right here, and I end up going in and making another one. These ones were starting to look okay, but yeah, I ended up scrapping these two and going with another one because yeah, see, there's where the axis problem comes into play. Like, I duplicated it and it automatically shifted over. The new ones that I duplicated, those are at the correct position. So I don't know why Zbrush is messing with the offset of the world, but yeah. And now, as you can see, I'm just making a brush out of that tube that we made. I'm just making a brush, so that way, when I do drag it out, it's already shaped and I don't have to worry about shaping it again. And now we're just creating a new brush with this one. Okay, and I deleted those ones, and now we're just going to go in and use this one to make the new hair with the longer strands. And see, there's where the issue lies. My ZBrush is so jacked up, I think I honestly need to reinstall it, because it is so messed up at this point. I think I've just done too much with ZBrush. Alright, and we're just, again, using the same techniques that we used in the other game hair creation, just using this curve modifier and the gizmo to shape the hair and put it on the side of the head. This isn't as bad of a process because mine are pretty thick, but if you had thinner versions, this would be very tedious. But again, like, you can go in there and you can sculpt by using polygroups on your tubes, and then break them apart, and then use the thicken in the dynamic if you want to try to make these kinds of hairs. You can easily do that. You can just use polygroups and then unweld the polygroup border on the tube, and then move them around to make them look even more thick, or excuse me, even more like natural hair, because this is pretty thick hair. These are pretty big fat pieces. And then you can use a dynamic thicken on that, and turn off the smoothing, or excuse me, the what's it called here? Let me check to see what this is called again. I always forget the name of this. Turn off the post subdiv. So turn off the post subdiv, and that should give you a little bit smoother of a hair strand. And then you can just move those around using the move topological brush. So you can see I did duplicate one side over to the other, and then I'm starting to move these kind of like in a tooth-like fashion in the root area, and that's going to allow me to kind of fill up the root area with those end pieces a little bit more organized, so it just kind of looks a little bit more natural. And I will be adding more to this. That's why I kind of like didn't do it fully up there, is because I will be adding more hair, and those hairs will fill up the root area. So I don't want to go like overboard with trying to smush all of these together and try to get them to work. And again, you want to remember the order of operations. So the one in the middle is the one that's going to be on top, while the ones on the sides are going to be on the bottom. That's just how it looks for me, like in terms of, like, I think it looks better when the middle one is on the top and the two on the sides are on the bottom. It looks more natural in my opinion, but you can do it however you want in the order of operations. And then this is where you would go in and you would just kind of like fiddle with these and make them a little bit better, and you know, just kind of take your time. Don't try to rush this kind of thing, because this hair is very tedious. I did rush this a little bit because I wanted to get this tutorial out. I don't have a lot of time over the weekends. A lot of stuff has been going on over here, and you know, I have to rush a lot of the things that I'm doing because it's super crazy over here. And yeah, just still tweaking the hair and making it look as natural as I can, sculpting it, and making sure that the roots are kind of puffed out away from the head, and making sure that they are going in the direction that I want. This is where muscle memory really helps, because your eye just catches, not only the muscle memory in your hands, but in your eyes as well. They catch what, if a hair piece is on a different subtool, then you're going to immediately notice that. And those are the things that come with practice. You can't train yourself to do that without practice. So you just got to keep practicing and building up that muscle memory to help you kind of figure out those kinds of things. All right. Just push the roots of the bangs underneath the sides, because that's usually how the hair goes. Is it usually on the, you know, the sides of the hair are more dominant in the order of, you know, what's going to be above and what's not. And then I'm making the hair shorter in the back, because that's just how the hair is. That's the hair that I went with, kind of like a more punky kind of look for the character. So I'm just making those shorter and then just kind of bringing them down less. And then again, right here, I'm just making sure the roots are kind of lining up a little bit better to help. Again, I did duplicate that and I did mirror it over. Again, here we are with the same problem with Zbrush, where it's thinking that the offset is in the wrong location, because the offset is just jacked up in general. I don't know what's wrong with it. Normally I have to go into other programs and fix it for some reason, so I'm gonna have to figure out what's going on with that. And then we just make a middle piece, make it about the same size, and yeah, that's going to be on top. Now, as you can see, there's a huge gap right there underneath her, you know, right there in the back. But again, we're going to be placing more hair, so don't worry too much about all the stuff that you have that's missing on the back. Just worry about the top right now, and then you can worry about the sides and the bottom after you're done. Here's what I'm looking at. I'm testing to see what the texture will look like with all the stuff together and how it looks, and I was pretty happy with it, so I'm just going to continue and keep going and try to make it a little bit better. As you can see, I just duplicated the hair, and now I'm moving it and offsetting the new hair to kind of help out. And this is how we're going to fill in those extra gaps on the top pieces. We're just going to duplicate the hair, and we're just going to fill it in by moving it. This is a very careful process, because again, you don't want overlapping. You don't want a massive amount of overlapping, because that will be noticeable in the textures. So you're just going to kind of shift them and make sure that they are not overlapping as much as possible. And if they are overlapping, hide it. Hide it. And there we are, just making it a little bit thicker. I like to think that this character kind of reminds me of like the old Disney female characters, but with a new kind of spin on it. So she kind of has like that look of like All Dogs Go to Heaven, like the girl from that. She's kind of got that face, I've noticed. So I don't know, maybe when I sculpt, that face is usually in my head when I'm sculpting, but it's so weird that these kind of look like old Disney characters from the old cartoons. Okay, and again, we're just kind of shifting these and making the roots a little bit better looking. You know, if you're not going to be like showing the top of this, then it really doesn't matter If you're just doing like still renders of certain angles, then this really doesn't matter as much. I mean, you still want it to make it look as good as you can, but it doesn't matter as much. You know, as long as it looks good from the viewing angles that you're going to be rendering it in, then it doesn't really matter. Okay. And again, we're just kind of going in and fixing these roots and fixing the overlapping. And right here, I had to mask that one because I couldn't grab it. So I just isolated it, masked it, and then inverted the mask so that I could work with that one specifically. Those are just things you're going to be doing with your muscle memory. And again, I'm trying to make it look more natural because I will be rendering this sort of from the top of the head, so I'm trying to get that to look right. Okay. Now for the side pieces, for the back of the head, I just drag out just the default small one and then just place it anywhere. The roots don't really matter to me. I'm just placing it up in the head and just hiding the root as best as I can, and then trying to shape the bottom of it. That's really all I do for the sides and the underneath of the hair. I just kind of place it and then sculpt the outer, the other top head pieces and the outer head pieces to help with the excuse me, help with the you know, the look of it. That's all I did. I don't really care about where the root is on this because you're never going to see the root, so it doesn't really matter. You can literally even just delete the root, but I was just going to keep it. So yeah, we're just kind of layering it, making it look like it's chaotic back there. Pushing up the root to hide most of the gaps from the top. And then again, I do mirror it, but then it welds together, so I kind of push those over. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag out one for the middle, and we're just going to put that directly in the middle to help. And yeah, and then what you could do is you can add extra to kind of give it a little bit of a curl to it and also twist. So, you know, don't be too shy. Then I noticed there was a gap right here, so I ended up just kind of covering that gap up and making that one a little bit longer than the other ones, just so it kind of blends with the other hair, and that's going to make it look a little bit more decent from the side view. And right now I'm just kind of pushing the hair and sculpting it, and we're going to give it the final touches afterwards so that it just again makes it look a little bit more natural. And that's pretty much it. This wasn't very long of a process. Again, I did rush it. But still, if you make your hair pieces this thick, this large, it's going to be a lot faster than if you were to make them smaller. So again, you can use the technique in the last video, and I'll leave a link in the description if you haven't watched the last video, of you know, breaking apart the polygroups and then moving the polygroups or shifting the polygroups, and then you can thicken those out and take off the post subdiv so that you can have thinner pieces, and that should help you. And right now we're just making a very thin one because this is going to be kind of like our stylized like little flyaways. You can make this a little bit thinner, or you can make it flat and fat. It all just depends on your style. I just kind of went in there and really quickly just made it thin, like a default. I didn't honestly like the ending of this, the little flyaway. I kind of was wondering what it would look like if it were fatter, but this, it didn't look too bad in the end. It actually looked pretty decent, so I ended up sticking with it. And again, just going in there and just placing it and moving it around, and that's pretty much essentially all I did. And then after that I just rendered it with the texture on there. And I'll show you in just a second of how you can export your texture. If you don't already have like a noisy texture, you can get one. You can grab one from Zbrush very easily and export it. Yep, just going in there and just making some default. And my ZBrush did crash on me when I did this, which absolutely infuriated me because I'm absolutely so sick and tired of ZBrush crashing. It actually crashed like a little bit after I did the flyaway brush. So I appended this new flyaway piece to the new brush, and then I saved that off, and for some reason ZBrush decided to crash. So you can see the process after, or excuse me, before it crashes compared to after. After, it was way worse than this. This actually looked way better, and then ZBrush was like, fuck you and your progress. And then afterwards, I don't remember what I did, so I ended up making it way worse looking, because that's just how 3D goes. Eventually, you know, you get something you like, and then a program just smacks you right in the face and says fuck you, and takes away all your progress for absolutely no reason at all. And yeah, there is the stylized hair. And again, I really like this, and I ended up shrinking her body because I felt like her head was too small, so I ended up shrinking her body. This will allow me to go in and, you know, make her look a little bit better looking than, yeah, I was gonna go with pink, but again, the program crashed, and you know, what can you do? I should have saved it right here, but completely forgot about it. And it's amazing, like, you set the duration of saves to be, you know, 8 minutes, but it's amazing how much stuff you can get done within 8 minutes before the quick save timer like goes off, and then if it crashes within the 8 minutes, then you pretty much lost like 7 minutes and 59 seconds of work, which is a lot of work. It's a lot of work when you are sculpting in ZBrush. 8 minutes is like an eternity of work. And yeah, basically what I did was I saved out that noise, and then I reloaded it on this polyplane, and then afterwards I ended up making the document 2048 by 2048, and then grabbing the document, and that's when it crashed. I was able to save out the image, luckily, but that's when it crashed, and you can see I pretty much lost every little bit of my work. So that kind of, the flyaway work at least, that kind of upset me. And I also had to go back in and reshape her body. I'm not gonna lie, I do like this smoky purple color that I added to her hair better than the pink, but I really wanted to go with the pink shade. I mean, I could have applied the pink shade again, but again, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying to get it done so I can do the tutorial, and I completely I spaced it. And yeah, then here's where I'm like going in and I'm like, what the hell did I do? Where did I place these? I don't know, maybe that was it. And then I just kind of like go in and save it. And then of course, you know, I go back in and reshape her body, and hopefully that works. And yeah, after saving out the texture, after grabbing the dock and saving out the texture, you can now apply this to your hair inside of any rendering program that you want. You can even leave it in, and if you work with Keyshot, surface noise will work with Keyshot. So if you're rendering in Keyshot, it's going to work in Keyshot. If you're rendering in another program, again, you can export the texture and then load it into that program, and that's going to be your bump image. That's going to be your normals. So I use bump mapping in the detail material in marmoset. So here's my girl, and we're going to bring her in, and again, see, she shifted. I don't know why she is shifted. It's really weird, but that's what happens in ZBrush now, and that's my life now, until I can figure it out. And then we made a new material, and then you just want to go in and load up your images onto your material. So we're going to go to our normals, and we're going to say detail normals, and then we're going to load up our bump map into the details, and that's going to be our bump map. So you can use a black and white texture, or you can use a normal. It doesn't matter. The detail normals will work with either or. And this is where I got a little upset because Zbrush decided to make like almost every single piece of hair into a group, so I was just like, oh my god. So I was going in there very stupidly and applying subdivision to it, and that was just kind of making me mad, so I was just like, oh my god, okay, I'll just do this. And I grouped it all into one group, and then I exported it again. I'm sorry that this video is taking so long, but I wanted to make sure that I got all of the details into there. And yeah, okay, yeah, so sometimes the exporting will take a really long time. You can imagine how long that took when it wasn't a sped up video. This is a 30-minute video, so that took forever. Not gonna lie, that took a long time. But again, I was exporting like 4 million polygons, I think, with polypaint. So, and then it's just gonna re-import into here, and I was just wondering why it didn't update. And now we have our materials that are, or excuse me, our polygroups that are fixed. And we're just applying all of our materials, and as you can see, I'm not very good at organization, so all my materials just say new matte, which sucks, but what can you do besides organize? And then we brought in our image, and now we can sit there and we can mess around with our image. One thing I did do afterwards was I did make the bump map less intense, because it just makes it look a little bit better. But yeah, that's how you do it. And then you just put anisotropic on there, fix the anisotropic direction so that it kind of looks like hair, and voila, you are good to go. This is me shifting her back over because it decided to be a pecker. And there we go. Alright, I hope this has helped you guys out. Thank you guys so much for watching. If it did, please leave a like on the video, ask any questions in the comments below, and I will try to get them. Alright, take care, you guys.